So today we're going to be talking about the components of technical writing and where do we start and why we technically write. So the purpose of technical writing is always to transmit technical information accurately. That is the number one concern along with communication, because what you're doing is going to be used for decision making as well as informing others about specific information. So one thing that tends to happen is that you can give up style and grace, but you always want to make sure that you're accurate and scientific. So there are a few things associated with technical writing. The first one is that you need to be technically accurate. The readers of these technical papers, they will, as I said before, make decisions and draw conclusions based on what you are presenting in the paper. A beautifully written piece full of inaccurate data is still going to be wrong, so you want to make sure that your content is always true. A common theme associated with this is that if people reading the paper see wrong facts, they will believe that the author is lazy. Technical writing is not a leisure reading. It does have a purpose. It serves a purpose. That's why accuracy is very essential. So the next thing is to be useful. So people read these papers because they need to use the information. So every sentence has to be useful. You do not want to just waste sentences. You definitely want to delete writing that is ornamental and not information based. So going through your paper, it's typically what happens is that you write a long paper first and then you cut it. So deleting sentences that do not contain pertinent or unnecessary background information is the first step in that. You really need to make sure that the audience is only getting the information that they need to know. No more, no less. The paper should be concise. It's easier and less time consuming to read. You always want to produce a succinct and readable paper. That means to the point and precise. You want to put yourself in the reader's shoes as you are writing it to make sure that you really are getting the point across that you are trying to make. So when in doubt, keep it simple. The paper needs to be complete. So there's a difference between concise and brief. Concise is telling a story in the smallest number of words, while brief is keeping it short, and typically what happens is that information is deleted. So sometimes there's this huge temptation to, whenever you see difficult information, you just kind of skip over it and you don't write about it, even though it could be very, very pertinent to your topic. Complete is basically including everything the reader needs to know, but nothing more. So, like I said before, no more, no less. They need to know everything that they should know, but they don't need to get bombarded with useless information. It should be clear and concise enough for the least technical reader, but complete enough so that the highest technical reader has everything that they need. So you always have to be selective and thorough. And technical writing papers today could be 10 times longer, but due to being selective and thorough, they are much shorter. You can always write more, but the task at hand is to make it short, comprehensive, and complete. The paper should also be clear, so the work should be understood by the intended audience. So one way to do that is to keep it short and simple. To break the writing into small sections that have one idea with little subsections. That always helps kind of concentrate your flow as well as your organization, but also allows the reader to understand what's going to be talked about in that specific section. So, really present one step at a time. You can also take that as writing one step at a time, and then also using visuals. So, some information is more valuable as visuals than a narrative. Using a photograph would explain how a zebra looks more than you just writing about a zebra. It's a better representation of the animal. So there are some instances where visuals are better useful than just narrative text. So, all papers should be correct in spelling, punctuation, and grammar. That's something that really, you just need to, it doesn't have to be the top priority. Always content, communication is the top priority. But as you're going through, especially, towards the end, or, some of your final drafts, you really should be focusing on, are you correct in spelling, punctuation, and grammar? Because when you're not, it's again the same kind of situation where the audience may think that the author is lazy or that they don't know what they're talking about. But then in general, it can also be is once you reach a certain level of grammatical mistakes, the paper is very, very hard to follow. So you want to make sure that the paper is easy to follow in terms of content and organization, but as well as spelling, punctuation, and grammar. So the paper has to be targeted. That means that, you need to know who your audience is. Are you writing to the general public? Are you writing to people in your field? Are you writing to, a political agenda? That kind of thing. Where are you writing to? Who are you writing to? You can have the same topic, but with different audiences, you're going to take a very different approach to the paper. So on top of just defining your audience, you can really put yourself in the audience's shoes and focus on their needs and their level of understanding. And this is all an individual by individual judgment or on a case by case basis, depending on, what papers you write, what the topic is, even, what class it's for, or is there a specific audience that you're focusing on. Technical papers, they should have enough detail so that non-technical readers get the gist of the story, even if they don't understand the specifics. That's called the gist test. And basically what that is saying that, yes, the most highly technical people will be able to read and understand the paper, but even a non-technical person should be able to understand the big picture associated with the paper. Even if it's not the specific little details that they understand, they should really know what's happening overall. What's the main argument or statement or finding being made throughout the paper. So if you're writing typically to a non-technical audience, you'll flesh out explanations, over-explain them, and take your time to really make sure that all the information is being processed by your audience. But if you have a technical audience, you can make explanations just parenthetical. You don't have to go into overly long, detailed explanations. So it's also well organized. I mean, something that a lot of people don't do, but some people do, is that they plan, and it's always a good idea to plan it out. Before you begin writing, you really need to create an outline, write notes, take notes on your literature that you're writing or reading, make simple lists, doodles, notes. There's also the hourglass format that's on esrm.zone as well that you can also use. Or you can watch the tutorial called How to Make an Outline that goes into the steps associated with making an outline. It's easier to tackle a large writing assignment in sections. It makes the task at hand much less scary. So when in doubt, always make an outline, always take it in sections, and that way it's easier to move forward. Lastly, just keep it interesting. Yes, technical writing is technical. You are informing people to make decisions. You are the expert on your topic, but what you need to do is to make sure that you're not dulling the audience, because no matter who the reader is, no matter who you are, if you are reading a boring paper, you're not going to want to read it. So something to keep in mind is that when in doubt, yes, content and organization and all that, but make sure that you also keep it interesting.